meet again at last. The circle is now complete.
What's the world coming to?
Well, you got a problem with what I did, Anthony?
Oh, no. Hey, no.
Fucking rat anyways. Whole family's all rats. Would have grew up to be a rat.
Stupid bastard. I can't fucking believe it.
Gee, I'm real sorry your mom blew up, Ricky.
Now you're gonna dig the fucking thing. You're gonna dig the hole. You're gonna do it. I got no fucking line. You're gonna do it.
Yes, I'll take the fucking hole. I don't give a fuck.
I realized that what was living behind that boy's eyes was pure and simply evil.
Jesus Christ. Mister, you okay in there?
Let's visit coffees around here someplace.
Have you any idea what the cost of your actions is? What their effect might be? Or you to give them hope? What do you give them? We give them happiness. And they give us authority. Groovy.
Welcome everybody, it's July 11th, 2017. I am Chris, coming to you live from the library on behalf of Cinephellas.com, the only place for all your cinephilic needs. Cinephellas, Cinepheliacs, and all other variations of the word Cinephellas that I can think of but can't get out of my mouth right now. I just want to remind you to head on over to the website right now. That's Cinephellas.com, but you already knew that, didn't you? I want to remind you to head over to the website right now where you're going to get some excellent content. The freshest thing that we have there is a piece that I wrote about a film called Man in the Camo Jacket. It was supposed to be an interview with Mike Peters, the subject of the film Man in the Camo Jacket. You might know Mike as the leader of the band called The Alarm, also a solo artist. He's also a philanthropist and an activist for cancer research and raising funds. Now, I was supposed to be talking to Mike last Friday, but unfortunately the calls didn't quite match up. There was a scheduling conflict. Mike is a busy guy. We cannot fault him for that. We're very happy to hear that he's doing well, that he's healthy and happy and out there. And, you know, once you read the article, you'll see about the crazy stuff he does. He played the world's highest gig. He played the world's longest song, and it's all to raise money and awareness. So check that out, and then we'll link to the podcast interview when I have that up. You're also going to get a review of Spider-Man Homecoming. That's right, we have another Spider-Man in the works. And what's really interesting about this one is we have Robert Downey Jr., of course, making an appearance. And yeah, I have to say, this kind of reminds me of the magic from the original Spider-Man that we had several years ago. I remember the first one with Tobey Maguire came out, and wow, when I was in high school, well, that certainly makes me feel old. And if you notice, I keep saying Spider-Man. For whatever reason, that just sounds better to me. But you may know him as Spider-Man. What else do we have here? Oh, this is a great piece. 20 actresses who should play Catwoman. So if you check that out, and I'm not going to ruin it for you, but that's a pretty excellent piece right there. And finally, the other great piece that we have up right now is the Gal Gadot tribute, The Kind of Wonder Woman We Need. And so this piece takes a look at the magic that is Gal Gadot. I mean, obviously she's one of the most beautiful actresses right now, but this piece takes a look at her artwork and her very many layers as an artist. So, for all that great content, head over to Cinephellas.com right now. You won't be disappointed. Let's get to the show. Podcast, I have a really, really exciting conversation with the one and only Michael Alago. So, we're going to be talking about the documentary based on his life called Who the Fuck Is This Guy? It comes out at a really interesting time when there's this sort of resurrection in the interest surrounding New York City music in the late 70s, early 80s. Meet Me in the Bathroom, Lizzie Goodman's latest book, chronicles the early 2000s music scene in New York City. It's an oral history, which kind of in itself harkens back to Please Kill Me, the Legs McNeil, Gillian McCain oral history about the history of punk in New York and London as well. And there's also the documentary by Brendan Toller called Danny Says, about the wonderful Danny Fields, manager of the Ramones, discovered the Doors. Really, I can't even tell you, I can't even begin to list the epic role that Danny has played in music history. So this film, Who the Fuck Is This Guy, really is part of that pantheon of New York City music history. But it doesn't only stop there. Not only are you going to get to hear me talk with Michael about his experience booking shows at the Ritz, which is one of the most famous clubs in the late 70s, early 80s, especially when it comes to this really intense moment where post-punk, so the Ramones, Blondie, all these bands have left New York by 1978. Talking Heads is another one. They've gone on to be mainstream popular. Then we have the no wave bands that kind of come in. You also know them as new wave, like the Cars. We can think of them. The Knack, that's the kind of pop version. No wave was the more experimental version going on in New York City at that time. But both of those kind of movements came through the Ritz at the same time that hip-hop was really coalescing in the Bronx. So you have figures like Fab Five Freddy, who were very instrumental in introducing Blondie's Deborah Harry and Chris Stein to b-boying and DJing and rapping, for instance. And of course, we see the kind of first mainstream rapping success, 1979, with Rapper's Delight, Sugar Hill Gang, and then when Blondie's song Rapture goes to number one in March of 1981, it's kind of the first time that we see rap being used to create a hit, right? Because Rapper's Delight was hugely important, but it was mainly popular on local radio stations at that time. It wasn't until Rapture that people started looking back 2 years earlier and saying, wait, this kind of art form already existed. And when I say people, of course I mean mainstream audiences that were not clued in. I mean, it's not until, say, the mid-'80s that mainstream audiences, thanks to MTV, and acts like Run DMC, for instance, really start to think of rap as a movement. But dating back to DJ Kool Herc's parties in his basement in 1973, there was already that culture developing there. So Michael Alago comes through that scene when he's booking at the Ritz. There's... what else? Oh, I can't even... Michael has done so many things. He was part of the Max's Kansas City scene, had some affiliation with CBGB. We talk a little bit about Suicide, the band. What else here? I mean, he goes on, of course, to be an A&R rep for the Elektra Records family, and then also later on the Geffen Records family. And he signs artists. You might know them, you might have heard of them. A little band called Metallica, another little band called White Zombie. And then in the most interesting turn of his career in the last, say, 2 decades or so, Michael's gone on to a wonderful career as a photographer. And in the post for this podcast, we'll have a link to some of his stuff, some of his images. But you really want to check those out because they're created with love. And I think the most inspiring thing for me about talking with Michael and seeing his story through this documentary, Who the Fuck Is This Guy, is Michael's ability to recognize beauty at all costs. In so many different ways, in so many different art forms, Michael is able to see what makes others the best they can be, and he harnesses that. And as I said, that's a thread that's common through his love for music as well as his photographs. So I hope that you really enjoy my conversation with Michael, and I will see you on the other side. Hello?
Hey, Christopher. Thanks so much for being so patient with us again. I have Michael on the other line.
Hey, no problem at all. Put it through whenever you're set.
Perfect. Hey, Michael. I have Christopher on the line.
Hi, Christopher.
Hey, Michael. How's it going?
Oh, pretty good. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for asking. I know we only have a short... Oh, go ahead.
I know, it's okay. I love the Cinefella page. I was just looking at it. It looks so cool.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate that, and I'll let the founders know as well.
Yeah. So wait a minute. What part of New Jersey are you in?
So I'm originally from the middle of the state, by New Brunswick.
Right, but you never changed your... Do you live somewhere else now?
I do. I live in Los Angeles now, but all my information is still from Central New Jersey. Yeah.
From 732. I love it. I was trying to figure out where the hell you are in New Jersey.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I figured that you would have some insight into the New Jersey life, yeah.
Correct.
Cool. So I know we only have a short time. Do you mind if we jump right in?
Okay. Please, whatever you say.
Okay, great. So the first thing I wanted to talk to you a little bit about is the list of producers on this film is crazy. It's so many cool people, including Peter Spire, who I had the chance to talk to with Spirit Game. So how did you get all these people together to tell your story?
If we're only talking about producers and not artists, obviously, Drew Stone, our director, collected a lot of those producer people. A lot of them were folks who donated money to the film so that we could get it done. And that's how they got their producer credit. It's kind of simple when I think about it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Drew told them, spoke to them all about what the project was. They also felt that my life had this interesting slant to it. So all those, like, producers, whether it's a Cyndi Lauper, a Rob Zombie, a Peter Spire, they just said, you know what, this sounds interesting, we want in. And then, you know, with the cast of characters that I signed, whether it was John Lydon in Pill or Metallica, it just all made for a very interesting group of artists. And then, you know, when you put in, you know, health issues and alcoholic issues and all of this stuff that was part of my journey, and I lived through it all. At least I always thought, at least they're not making a film about a dead person, at least. So, you know, I think that was kind of exciting to people, seeing the road that my life took me on, from a kid in Brooklyn to 25 years as an A&R person, to alcohol and crack addiction and HIV issues. But you know what? I'm a clean and sober person, and I live a beautiful life, and I'm alive, and it's all good. So I think I probably answered too much of your question, but there's the answer.
No, but I think that's the fascinating part about the film, right, is that you have all these diverse people who are recognizing the incredible journey that you've been on.
Yes.
Right? That's really exciting. And so to jump into your connection to New York music, one thing that really stood out to me is you talk a lot about Suicide, the band Suicide. Right? And so I wanted to know, I mean, like, I've read a lot of exciting, you know, stories about shows, but what's your favorite memory from a Suicide show?
Oh, my favorite memory of one of the Suicide shows, and I think I speak about it in the film, is very early on in my going out as a young 16-year-old. It must have been 1976, and I just remember hearing about Suicide. So I go to one of their shows at Max's Kansas City, and all of a sudden, you know, this intense Martin Rev keyboard insanity starts. starts, and it has these qualities of dance music, experimental music, and then Alan comes on stage almost like a demented Elvis Presley or someone of that ilk, and starts doing his thing, screaming and shouting and bebopping, and I just thought, oh my God, this is fucking crazy. And I love it. So I got up from one of the tables at Max's and sat. There were 2 steps only to get on the stage in Max's, and it was a small stage. So I sat on those 2 steps, and I was in awe listening to Alan. As the concert went on, he always got a bit violent with himself, with smacking himself with the microphone and cracking it in his chest or in his head. And the next thing you know, there's a whole lot of blood going on. But it's 1976. People are not used to this. Yeah. And a lot of times, suicide cleared the room. So at the end of the show at Max's that evening, I go up the flight of stairs to the offices and the dressing rooms, and I just said to Alan, I absolutely adore you. And he just thought that was incredible, because he said, nobody, especially someone young like yourself, ever comes up backstage after the show, because I drive them all out of the room. And I just thought, well, you know what? I love you. Can we take a picture together? And somebody took, with their plastic Instamatic camera, if you need any of these pictures, I'm sure they'll send them to you. There's a fabulous picture of Alan and I at Max's Kansas City in 1976, and it's one of my favorite pictures ever. From that day, I have been in love with everything Suicide and Alan Vega as a solo artist has done. At some point, I had signed him to Elektra Records. We made 2 records with him, and he's one of the greatest ever. As a matter of fact, since his passing, there's been more talk about Alan than ever. This coming Sunday, the gallery Jeffrey Deitch is doing a huge retrospective of Alan's work. And, that's a far cry from driving everybody out of the room at Max's to present day.
Yeah, I mean, that's an incredible transition.
Oh, yes.
And so your love of music, of Suicide, of course, that leads you to the Ritz, where you worked with Jerry Brandt, right?
Yes.
And
yes.
I'm very curious. Jerry Brandt first came across my radar for famously managing Joe Bryant.
Well, Jerry came from the mailroom at the William Morris Agency at the same time that David Geffen did. Jerry's path was a little different than David Geffen, but Jerry worked back in the day with everybody from the Rolling Stones to Sam Cooke. Later on, not only did he manage Joe Bryant and get him signed to Elektra, he discovered Carly Simon and a group called the Voices of East Harlem, and they got signed to Elektra as well. As you know, Jerry was Jerry started the Electric Circus in the 60s at St. Mark's Place. Fast forward, because I'm sure he did many things in between that, it's 1980, and he's now the music director at the Ritz. But I don't know if I actually answered your question or not.
Oh, yeah, I mean, absolutely. I was going to just ask very generally sort of about your experience working with him and kind of... Because just that... that I remember watching the documentary about Jobriath that came out a few years ago, and Jerry, yes. Right? Jerry kind of wasn't painted in the greatest light. So I was wondering, what your memories were of that period.
Well, my memory of Jerry Brandt, who I still see to this day, is gratitude. I love Jerry. He's a character. He gave me my start in the music business. So in 1980, when the Ritz opened, I walked in there in an afternoon. He was in the balcony. It was like the Wizard of Oz. And he said, "Kid, what are you doing here?" I said, "I want a job." He said, "Can I have your resume?" I said, "I don't have a resume. I go to the School of Visual Arts and I work in a pharmacy." He thought that was funny. He called me up to his office. We start talking about all kinds of music. Singers from the 1950s, present-day pop music. I start talking about hard rock and heavy metal, something he knows nothing about. He thought that was funny. And he said, Michael, I'm going to give you a job. You're going to open my mail, you're going to answer my phone, and you're going to get my lunch. And I thought, oh my God, I am in the music business. But you know what? I was. That was the beginning of my life in the music business. He also taught me in the 3 years that I worked there how to talk to booking agents on the phone and how to book a room the size of the Ritz, which was like, 1,600 seats. I learned so much from Jerry. I am forever grateful to him. And even when I wanted to leave to kind of like expand my wings and go elsewhere, he was helpful in calling Bob Krasnow at Elektra, saying, I got this kid, I don't want to lose him, but he wants to move on. And, Bob interviewed me. I almost had that same kind of interview with Bob, and Bob hired me, and that's how I got my first job as an A&R executive.
So it seems the common thread between your work as a booker and then your work as an A&R rep, and then in your current life as a photographer is sort of always looking, right, like always sort of looking for this perfect moment.
Well, I love the idea of the perfect moment, and I guess it does exist, but since we're human beings, I just try to do in my personal and professional life the best that I can do. So whether it's an artist, I try to seek out who the best people are, as you can see from the roster of artists that I have signed over the years. Fast forward, after 24, 25 years of doing A&R, I saw that the music business changed. My other love was collecting photography. So I said to myself, I'm going to take pictures. And my focus was both black and white and color pictures of big, strong men who were tattooed and scarred, because that's the type of man I like to look at. And a company called Bruno Gemunder in Berlin saw my work. I now have 3 books of photography out, and I'm working on a book of erotic Polaroids for 2018.
Wow. So
did I answer your question correctly?
Yeah, I mean, there's no correct. I mean, it's great to hear you talk about sort of how your vision translates into all these projects.
I just, there are certain things that I just get excited about, and when I get excited about something, I just start moving forward. And you know what? It either works or it doesn't work. And what doesn't work, I just move on to the next thing. But I've always been very specific about my loves. And, like I had mentioned, or maybe I didn't, from when I was 14 years old, I knew I always wanted to be in the music business. I did not know what that meant, but fast forward to 19 years old, and I meet Jerry Brandt, and as they say, the rest is history.
Yeah, and definitely like putting in your passion and just kind of trusting in that and following it, that it will get you places, I think is a really inspiring quality, not only from you, but also that people will take away from the film.
Oh, well, good. I'm glad you feel that way. I'm a very passionate person, and everything in my life is very black and white, and there's no middle ground. And if I'm feeling it, I want to be a part of it.
That's great. I mean, yeah, like I said, I mean, that's what really I think most people are going to respond to. That's what I really like about the film. And I also wanted to mention...
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, of course. And I feel really privileged to have seen it and get to talk to you about it, first of all.
Cool.
And then I just wanted to mention, too, I know we're kind of running down on time. Right now, one of my other projects is I'm working on a book that was my thesis in school. It was about New York music from 1978 to 81. So if ever there's a time that you would be interested, or kind of just, if that is exciting in any way, I would love to talk to you more about all these things.
Oh, sure. Whenever you like. I'm always around, and if I'm not around, it's because I'm doing something else, as we all are doing.
Of course,
We're all busy. But when it's something exciting about music, and especially that period of time in New York, I find it all very exciting. So, sure, if you need my help with anything, you'll call me another time, and we'll talk about it.
Great. I really appreciate that.
Fabulous.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much, and I look forward to spreading the word. The article should be up in the next day or so it'll be circulating around.
Oh my Lord, you're quick.
Well, I like to get it out. I don't like to sit on it. I like to write it when I'm passionate.
No, of course. And so will this thing include pictures and stuff?
Yeah, I mean, as of now, I have the key art that the press agency sent me and the trailer and that stuff, but maybe I can get some other photos as well.
Well, there's that fabulous little Instamatic picture of me and Alan Vega from 1976 that's fabulous.
Okay, should I write to the...
Whatever, I'm just saying.
Oh, yeah, no, I would love to. I would love to have that if you would be so kind.
Okay, well, they'll send it to you.
Okay.
Yeah, we can make sure to get that sent to you if Michael sends that over to us. For sure.
Okay. Christopher, thank you so much.
All right, Michael, thank you so much. Have a great day.
Okay. You too. Be well.
Christopher, have a good one.
All right, bye, guys.
Okay.
That certainly felt like a whirlwind, didn't it? I mean, I'm sitting here, I have 2 pages of questions, 14 total, and those are just a brief outline of questions that I wanted to ask Michael. And before you know it, it's over. It's just done. I could talk to him for hours. I just scratched the surface on suicide, on Jerry Brandt, on Jabriath. I wanted to ask him questions about digital, the digital landscape and kind of what that has meant to the transition of the record companies in terms of A&R experience. I wanted to ask him what he's listening to right now, and I could just listen to him all day talk about his passions, everything from music to his photography. It's hugely exciting, and I do hope I get to talk to Michael one more time. And hopefully we'll have that picture up on the website of him and Mr. Alan Vega. And I should link a little bit to Suicide's music and some of Alan's solo work. I thought it would be just fitting to end today's podcast with Suicide's Mr. Ray, my favorite Suicide song from 1980. I hope you enjoy it as well. I'm all hot and bothered. Anyway, thank you for joining me on this, yet another edition of the Cinephellas Podcast. I want to remind you to share a movie and, in honor of Michael, a song with someone you love. And we'll see you next time.
Super cop, super cop, triple E, triple E, triple E, standing around on the street looking for a high. Saw this lady, she says, come over here, I got something for you. I'll get you up, oh, I'll get you up, oh yeah. There I was, flying high, feeling good, and all of a sudden Daddy soon comes over. He says, hey, you. I said, me? I said, you. Goodbye. Mr. Ray,